Hello everyone, welcome back. I miss you guys so much. So today we're going to look at how can we change context paths in Spring Boot application. Before we start, for those of you who are new to my channel, my name is Jasper. I make videos on full stack technologies such as Spring Boot and Angular. So if you find yourself interested in any one of these topics, please make sure that you hit the subscribe button for me and turn on the bell next to it so you don't miss out any one of my new weekly posts. Now without further ado, let's jump right into today's topic. So here, as can be seen, I have already opened my IntelliJ IDE. And before we head over to POM XML to look at what dependencies we have as always, I guess the first questions that you have in your mind are one, what is context path? And then two is, why do I want to change context path? So I guess the answers really differ, depends on who you ask. But from my experience, I like to explain what context path is using metaphor. So think of your servlet container, for example, Tomcat, as a condo. And then think of your application as a suite in that condo. So in a condo, you usually use a suite number to distinguish what suite you're talking about, right? For example, suite 1506 is different from suite 1103. And so with servlet container, it's the same idea. On the same servlet container, you can deploy more than one application. And when that time comes, you need to have a way to distinguish between the different applications that are running inside your servlet container so that when a request comes in, your servlet container knows to where it needs to redirect the request to in order to have it properly handled. And that is what context path is, right? Context path is a suite number. And the second question, why do I need to change, or why do you need to change a context path? It's exactly the reason that I mentioned in my previous example that explained to you what the context path is. Let's really kick off today's tutorial. So the first thing, as always, we will head over to POM XML to look at what dependency we have. So in POM XML, again, this is a very simple Spring Boot application, so I don't have many dependencies. Instead, I just have one, which is Spring Boot Starter Web. And this will bring in the servlet container Tomcat for us so that our application can be deployed and can be accessed through a web browser, for example. Now, if we go to the package, you see I have a main class, which as always has annotation Spring Boot application annotation. And if you don't know what this does, make sure you refer back to one of my previous videos, which talks about what this annotation really does. And beside this, the other class that I have is an index controller. This basically is an alternative to serve the welcome page when you hit the context path of your application. So in our case, whenever you hit the context path of your application, it will simply return a message saying, welcome to change context path in Spring Boot application demo. So with this in mind, let's move on. So the first way I want to show how to change context paths is through command line arguments, or sometimes in IntelliJ IDE, they refer it with the name program arguments. So here, if I specify --server.servlet.contextpath, and I can put in a whatever context path I want, so I might just use command line arguments, then hit OK. And now let's run this application, see does it take in our changes. Okay, so let's move on to the web browser. Here, if I refresh this, as it can be seen that it's a 404 because our context path is not this, right? So if I use the right context path, command line arguments, it should give me the expected welcome message. Yeah, so it gives me the message that you see here in the code, right? And the second way that we can use to change our application context path is by using VM options, or sometimes people call it JVM system properties. The names are interchangeable. They refer to exactly the same thing. So to use this, you're gonna specify -d, then you're gonna put in server.servlet.contextpath again, and with a different context path, of course. So let's call it VM options this time, and hit OK. And let's run our application again, see what context path we can use to access our application. Now let's refresh this page. It's still command line arguments. It didn't take in our changes. So why is that? Oh, I misspelled this, so no wonder it didn't work. Okay. So let's restart the application again, see what do we get this time. And it still didn't work. So what is wrong? Server.servlet.contextpath. Let's remove this. And let's run this application again. See what do we get this time. And it's a 404. So now let's write VM options. And this time, boom, we got our changes take effect. And the third way we can change our context path is through environment variables. So let's delete this. And let's head over to environment variables input box and put in server underscore servlet underscore context underscore path. Then we'll use, we'll call it environment variables, and we hit OK. And we run our application again this time, and the previous context path should no longer work, and we should start to use the new context path. So let's prove this. Let's refresh the page, and as expected, there's no page. And once we change this to the red one, environment variables, it should work. Didn't work. So what do we get now? We have server underscore, oh, this is misspelled. Server underscore servlet underscore context path, and this time should be correct. Let's rerun this application. See what do we get this time. And let's put a S. Okay, it works this time. So as can be seen, the third way of changing context paths also works. Then the fourth way to change application context is pretty simple as well, which is by directly using the SpringBoot supported application.properties file. So here we'll just specify server.servlet.contextpath. Then we'll put in a context path that we want. I just call it application properties. Then let me run this application again, and we should now be able to use this as our context path. So here, if I refresh the page, as expected, we get 404. No worries, don't panic. Let's change this to the right one, application properties. And now it works again, right? The fourth way of changing context paths is very simple, like the other three, but it still works, right? And the last way of changing context paths that I want to show you is very rare to use, but you can use it if you want, depends on your use cases. So the last way of changing is to provide a bin to the bin factory. The bin will need to be in the type of web server, factory, customizer, and in a daemon operator, we need to put in configurable servlet web server factory. And here we need to set the context path programmatically. I'll just call it this. Then lambda set context path. I'll just call it web server factory customizer, and run this application again, and we should now be able to use this as our context path instead. So if I refresh this page, as expected, we get 404. And if I simply replace this with web server factory customizer, okay, that worked as expected. This is indeed what we said here, and it indeed took effect. So that's all the 5 different ways of changing context paths. And you may wonder, okay, great. Now I know how to change context paths, but what if I have all 5 of them configured? Which one will take the most precedence, right? I'll just show you so you know who takes the most precedence and who takes the least precedence. So you know very clearly how to control the context path in case you use the multiple different ways of changing it. So let's head to the IDE settings. Then let's configure context path with all the different ways. Server underscore servlet context path. Then here I will just do environment variables server underscore servlet underscore context underscore path. Then here we use VM options. server.servlet.contextpath, and we'll call it VM options. Then we're going to use program arguments, or in other words, command line arguments. We'll use --server.servlet.context-path. Then here we'll call it command line arguments. Hit OK, and let's head over to application.properties. Here we'll configure servlet context path like we previously did. We call it application properties. And okay, and we still have this bin, so we don't have to touch this part. Now let's run this application again, see what do we get this time. So if we now head back to the browser, if I refresh this, it still works. That means this way of supplying a bin to the bin factory to customize context paths takes the most precedence. Okay, now if I delete this and rerun our application again, we should need to use a different context path this time. Let's see which one do we need to use. So now if I refresh this page, okay, 404 as expected. Now let's change to, let's try maybe the command arguments takes the most precedence, right? Let's hit this. Okay, yeah, indeed. Now if we delete the command arguments, then let's try who takes the most precedence this time. Let's rerun this application and head over to our browser, and let's try, I don't know, maybe environment variables. No, not that. Let's try VM options. Okay, yeah, so this time VM option takes the most precedence. Then let's delete the VM options. See who takes the most precedence this time then. So let's run this application and head over to browser. So maybe let's try environment variables or application properties. Okay, so 404, no worries. Then let's try environment variables. Okay, so the context path now is environment variables. Okay, so that takes the most precedence this time. So now let's delete this. So our last way of changing context paths, application properties, should take effect this time. So let's run this application, then head over to browser, hit a refresh, 404, don't panic, and let's change to application properties. Okay, so indeed that works. So with today's video, I hope it really helped you to understand how to change context paths differently in a SpringBoot application using different ways. So if you enjoyed today's video, please hit the like button for me so that more people can discover this video on YouTube, and also help my channel to grow. And if you want to watch more videos like this in the future, please hit the subscribe button and turn the bell next to it so you don't miss out any one of my new weekly posts in the future. And if you have any questions regarding to this video, please don't hesitate to drop me a comment in the comment section below, and I will get back to you on your question. And besides, if you don't have any questions regarding this video, perfect, that means you have really mastered the knowledge of today. Then you can drop me a comment in the comment section below telling me what you want to watch next in the future, and I will take that into consideration to prepare for my next video. So that's it for today. I will see you guys next time. Bye for now.